Ideas, and again, this ugly streak.
Well, you look
streak of anti-Semitism.
Who's the most popular politician on the left?
AOC? I don't know.
One of, but who's Bernie? Bernie is Bernie is. I mean, he's not a capitalist.
No, he's not, and he's also not president.
He's not. But
never would be.
But neither is Mamdani.
No, but he will, trust me, he will be featured in the campaign commercials.
But they're going to feature people. They boogeyman everybody.
Yeah, but you don't have to boogeyman him. He does.
Bill Maher is back with another sharp critique, and this time, he's turning his gaze on the Democrats and one of their rising stars, Zohran Mamdani. In his latest monologue, Maher breaks down what he sees as growing cracks within the DNC, arguing that the party's current trajectory, along with Mamdani's brand of democratic socialism, could spell trouble for its future. It's a candid, thought-provoking look at where American politics might be heading next. Buckle up. This one's worth watching.
Pillars that this country is founded on. One is democracy, and one is capitalism, free markets. And it seems like one party wants to get rid of one, and the other party wants to get rid of the other. Right? The Republicans are not that. Democracy is just not number one on their list. It just isn't. It isn't. It's behind Christianity and a few other things. And the Democrats. I mean, I read these. 74% are for democratic socialism. Only 16% favor capitalism. Is this going to be a country that I don't recognize in 5 to 10 years if we don't have these two?
Let's get one thing straight. It's not that Republicans have a problem with democracy, it's that they believe in fairness. For years, they've watched left-leaning media outlets and their supporters relentlessly target them, especially former President Donald Trump. From unverified reports to sensational headlines, the pattern has felt unmistakable. Paint the Republican Party as undesirable in the eyes of the public. These constant attacks have eroded trust in journalism and widened America's political divides. So the real question becomes this: if misinformation and false narratives have caused this much damage, isn't it reasonable to hold those responsible accountable? After all, democracy doesn't thrive on deception, it thrives on truth, transparency, and equal treatment under the law.
If Mamdani is the face of the Democrats on the East Coast and Katie Porter is the face on the West Coast, I don't know if that's great politically for them.
Bill Maher is raising some legitimate questions here. Both Zohran Mamdani and Katie Porter are rising political figures whose views have sparked intense debate about the direction of the country. Mamdani, a self-proclaimed democratic socialist, pushes for rent freezes, publicly owned grocery stores, free public transit, and higher taxes on large corporations and the wealthy. His vision, appealing to some for its idealism, leans toward an economy shaped heavily by government control. Porter, meanwhile, supports allowing transgender-identifying men to compete in women's sports, framing her position around inclusion and equality. On the surface, both politicians present themselves as champions of fairness and progress. But beneath the rhetoric lies a far more complicated reality, one that raises serious questions about fairness, economic sustainability, and how to balance compassion with practicality when shaping America's future.
New York, it's definitely it's the media capital, the financial capital. It is a bellwether like no other city is in this country. So don't tell me that who the mayor of New York is doesn't matter.
Let me play devil's advocate for a second. Do you think, let's say, on the seize the means of production, do you think that the mayor, that one person, if he is a democratic socialist, do you think that he would have the power and influence to be able to, usher in socialism?
He definitely has the power and influence to elect J.D. Vance or whoever is the Republican candidate next time. It is a walking commercial for the Republican Party nationally.
The Republicans are going to...
When you let the Democrat socialists, and now they're actually calling themselves socialists, when you let them take over a major American city, this is what you get. The state-run grocery stores, which worked so well in Cuba and the Soviet Union and Venezuela.
Did you catch what Maher said right at the start? He pointed out that electing Zohran Mamdani would practically hand the presidency to J.D. Vance or whichever candidate the GOP puts forward. And honestly, he has a point. Many voters recognize the real-world consequences of drifting too close to socialism, and they're not eager to take that gamble. That America's political pendulum swings fast, and when one side pushes too far left, the other side inevitably gains momentum. Maher's argument is simple but sharp. If Democrats throw their weight behind figures like Mandani, whose policies lean heavily towards socialist ideals, they risk alienating the moderates and independents who actually decide elections. And if that happens, the 2028 race could become an easy win for the GOP. Mandani's rise isn't just a New York story, it's a warning sign for the entire Democratic Party.
Well, you look
Ugly streak of anti-Semitism.
Who's the most popular politician on the left?
AOC? I don't know.
One of, but who's Bernie? Bernie is
yeah.
Bernie is. I mean, he's not a capitalist.
No, he's not, and he's also not president.
He's not. But
never would be.
But neither is Mamdani.
No, but he will. Trust me, he will be featured in the campaign commercials.
But they're going to feature people. They boogeyman everybody.
Yeah, but you don't have to boogeyman him.
Exactly. Mandani ends up becoming his own worst enemy. His vision of a socialist-style state may sound appealing in theory, promising fairness, equity, and broad government support, but in practice, it raises serious concerns about personal freedom, economic stability, and the immense cost of sustaining such a system, beyond policy. Mandani has also drawn backlash for his outspoken views on Israel and a series of controversial posts that have sharply polarized voters. While these remarks may energize a small faction of his base, they alienate a much larger segment of Americans who see them as divisive or out of touch. In today's political climate, perception can make or break a candidate. And too often, Mandani's rhetoric overshadows his intentions. To many voters, his proposals feel too radical, too risky, and too disconnected from the practical realities of governing. That combination makes his path to national leadership not just difficult, but highly unlikely.
Nancy Pelosi, Hillary Clinton, Gavin Newsom.
Yeah, but
they make anybody into boogeyman.
It has.
I think it was
just have more weight when it's real. I mean, when you can really.
Interestingly, the very people this liberal commentator points to as victims of conservative criticism often end up damaging their own reputations without any help from the right. Take Gavin Newsom, for example. His struggles didn't stem from a grand conservative conspiracy, they were tied to public frustration over how his administration handled the devastating Palisades fires in California. Many residents felt the state appeared unprepared, with too few resources deployed, and critics questioned decisions about water allocation that prioritized environmental protections over immediate firefighting needs. Then there's Nancy Pelosi. She didn't need political opponents to cast doubt on her image. The controversy surrounding stock trades made by her and her husband has long fueled accusations from critics who believe members of Congress should be held to stricter financial disclosure and trading rules. Whether or not those accusations are fair, they've undeniably shaped public perception. It's ironic that some in the liberal elite insist they're being unfairly targeted when, in reality, their own decisions, and how those decisions are perceived, often do more to shape their public image than anything their critics say.
Like you spent your whole life talking about how government tries to do too much, which it does, and spends too much. And here you have Trump, who is the Republican, who is aggrandizing more power than anybody, as we just talked about. And on the other side, you have the guy running in New York, Mandani, right? Okay, who's like a straight up communist. I mean, he is. He talks about, the things that communists say. I mean, he wants free grocery stores, free buses.
I want him to win.
You want him to.
Mandani seems to have connected with younger Democratic voters, but much of that support appears rooted in idealism rather than a full understanding of the historical record. For many, concepts like economic equality, guaranteed housing, and expansive government support sound compassionate and fair, almost like a modern utopia. On paper, it's an appealing vision, but the real-world outcomes of communist or heavily state-controlled systems have often been far more troubling. Throughout the 20th and 21st centuries, from the Soviet Union to Cuba to Venezuela, nations that embraced centralized economic control frequently faced shortages, declining productivity, political repression, and severe limits on personal freedom. These outcomes weren't aberrations, they were systemic consequences of concentrating too much power in the hands of the state and suppressing dissent or market competition, yet the appeal persists, especially among younger voters who see these ideas as a humane alternative to what they view as the inequities of capitalism. What often gets lost in the rhetoric, however, is that systems promising perfect equality can also bring heavy government control, censorship, and limits on individual ambition, the very freedoms that democratic societies work to safeguard. The challenge isn't that young people care about fairness, it's that idealism can obscure the hard lessons history has already taught.
Wait.
We need every 20 years or so, we need a conspicuous, confined experiment with socialism so we can crack it up again. Socialist slogan used to be, workers of the world unite, you have nothing to lose but your chains. The new socialist slogan is, trust us, this time it won't be.
Exactly, that's the core issue. History has shown time and again that large-scale socialist systems tend to fail far more often than they succeed. Yet many young Democrats appear convinced that this time will be different, that their version will somehow overcome the same structural problems that derailed previous attempts. But we don't need to repeat those mistakes to learn from them. Decades of evidence, economic decline, political repression, and widespread shortages are already well documented in nations that embraced heavy state control. The pattern is remarkably consistent. Inspiring promises of equality eventually give way to restricted freedoms, limited opportunity, and a system that cannot deliver what it pledged. That doesn't mean capitalism is perfect. But it does offer something socialism historically has not: space for innovation, personal choice, and the possibility of upward mobility. Instead of ignoring the lessons written across history, we should study them, understand why these systems collapsed, and appreciate the freedoms and opportunities that a market-based democracy makes possible.
When the post-war Labour government in Britain was about to get started, one of their leading lights was a socialist named Nurian Bevan. He said, what could go wrong? He said, we have a nation bedded on coal, surrounded by fish. It would take an organizational genius to have a shortage of either. In 3 years, they had a shortage of both.
So you see, Maher has a point. If Democrats were to present Mandani and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez as their 2028 ticket, it would almost certainly be a political disaster. Sure, that pairing might energize a slice of the younger, far-left base, but it would alienate the voters who actually decide elections: moderates, independents, older Americans, and the working class. These are people who've lived through the real consequences of radical policies and understand how destabilizing extreme ideology can be for a nation's economy, security, and social cohesion. The older generation, especially, would see right through the slogans and idealistic branding. They'd recognize that such a ticket isn't about practical governance, it's about ideological purity. And that's exactly what the Democrats don't need right now. What they need is balance, pragmatism, and an appeal to the political center. A Mandani AOC ticket might look bold on paper, but in reality, it would deepen division, fracture their coalition, and send undecided voters running straight toward a more centrist or conservative alternative.
That come out to you when you're talking in a festival or wherever they are, I think is because I think Bernie showed up at Coachella. That must have been fun for the fans. It's who shows up on Election Day. And I just don't see that's the ticket. I mean, Cory Booker, I know you've worked with him. I like Cory a lot from my home state of New Jersey. Made a speech for 25 hours. Again, just whacking each other off. This is just not what's going to get the job.
What Democrats need most right now is a candidate grounded in reality, someone who genuinely understands the everyday struggles of ordinary Americans. For too long, the party has been trapped in its own echo chambers, debating abstract issues and obsessing over identity politics, while voters worry about far more immediate concerns. People aren't waking up thinking about theoretical ideological battles. They're thinking about how to pay the rent, afford groceries, keep a steady job, and maintain some sense of financial security. If Democrats want to rebuild trust, they have to step outside their political and cultural bubbles and actually listen to voices beyond their usual circles. They need a leader who can bridge progressive ideals with real-world practicality, someone who connects emotionally, economically, and authentically with the everyday heartbeat of the country. And that brings us to the end of today's video. If you enjoyed it, hit the like button and subscribe for more content just like this. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.